And yeah, so welcome everyone to the Fall In Vets Hackathon podcast. And we got Greg Petropoulos. Is that how you say your last name?
Yep, Petropoulos, yeah.
Sweet. So he's the hackathon winner for the 2023 June July hackathon that we did for mental health. And his project was, won first place. So before we dive into that, would love to hear, Greg, your sort of background and, since this is a vets hackathon, curious, like your journey, like what led you to the Marine Corps?
Yeah. So, it was many years ago, of course. I got out in 2003, late, like in December, literally like right before New Year's. So almost 2004, but 2003, I was getting out and I had been in the Marine Corps before September 11th. I remember um, being in the North Carolina, in Camp Lejeune in the barracks, and we watched it. And at that point, we were ready. We were ready to go. We just didn't know who was going to go, but we were all ready to go. So that was, there was a lot of stuff that happened with that. And then what led me to the Marine Corps was before that, I had been in high school, and I remember Kosovo going down. I don't know if you guys remember Kosovo, but that was happening where they were doing ethnic cleansing. And I heard about this, and I was like, man, I want to do something. My dad served in the Greek army. In Greece is like mandatory, you have to. So he did that, and I was like, it'd be pretty awesome if I could like enlist and get to go overseas and do something good. And I was young, was full of testosterone and courage and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, this is a perfect fit. I don't want to go to college. I'm not ready for that. And that's kind of how I ended up in the Marine Corps.
Nice. So what made you choose the MOS that you did?
Yeah. So my ASVAB scores were good, but and they asked me a couple of times, like, "Are you sure you want to, do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's what I want to do. Like, I want to go to the infantry. That's what I want to do." They assigned me as a mortarman. So I was a mortarman. It was literally luck of the draw that I wasn't a machine gunner or a small gunner. They were just like literally lined us up and said, "Okay, you guys got these ASVAB scores. You, and you, mortars, you, small." And it went like that in SOI. So I was like, cool. What are mortars? What do they do? How do they work?
Yeah. Damn, you guys didn't even have a choice. I remember when I went through it, at least we had like an option and we could select ourselves like where we want to go. Did
Yeah.
you how did you feel after kind of getting used to that?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
341s, right?
0341, yeah. So like
Yeah.
SOI was cool, and it was like real lax. The your platoon
Oh
sergeant.
yeah, they are more lax. Yeah.
Yeah, you're just like, oh, cool. So this is how it is. And then after that, you get to the fleet, and it's like, oh no, you're gonna get you're gonna get ran. So that was an eye opener. Getting shipped out to North Carolina, stationed in Camp Lejeune with 3-8, and then just getting to know my platoon and knowing our drills. And it was very eye opening, but I don't regret any of it. Love it all. Still talk to the guys. One of my Marines I served with, his birthday was a couple days ago. So I just always stay in touch with those guys, because I mean, some of them I haven't talked to, and it's been like almost 20 years now. But I mean, I'll see them on Facebook, and like something will happen to them, and say, hey, everything all right? Check on them and stuff like that. So yeah, it's cool. Brotherhood, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, I definitely miss all the different platoons I was with and try to keep in touch. Like I was talking to Jack, our previous judge for the hackathon, and I've got a bunch of photos in my hard drive, and it's just sitting here, like the videos, and I took a lot of photos, and because we were traveling, and it's like, I don't want to post them on Facebook, and I just, I'm thinking about different you know, product ideas potentially, like what would it look like to have something like that out there. But anyways, so you're in the Marine Corps, and you know you're finishing up your contract. Are you thinking about reenlisting, or are you just dead set on getting out?
I was pretty dead set. In the infantry, it's not like a, and this, being in the infantry, you're going to do your 4 years and you're just going to be a diehard after that, a lifer, or you're just going to be like, I want nothing to do with this. And after 4 years, I think I was pretty burnt out. I just wanted to like start something new, try college, try do something different. I could always come back, but I thought it was important just to get that growth so I could see what else I could do because I did the Marine Corps. So I was like, okay, cool. Now I have maturity, I have confidence, I have like, I guess like life experience, So now let me go to college and try something new. So that's why I got out.
Cool. And I saw in your background that you got a degree in geology. Is that right?
Yeah, I got a couple degrees. So I initially, when I got out of the Marine Corps, went into community college, and this is for the people that are not good at math. I was not good at math, and I barely knew enough to get I knew enough just to run the mortar, and I was good. If I could get the mortar on point, get my mills right, get my map right, I was good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was not a math guy at all. So it was a huge challenge for me to like get over that. So when I went to community college, I spent like 1.5 years of my GI Bill doing remedial courses, like trying to get my math up to like college level and English and all that. Cause I had dropped, I didn't do that well in high school. So my GI Bill got ate up a lot by a lot of remediation. But I punched through it. And it was like one of the biggest challenge academically for me was going from zero to graduating with a geology degree, which is sort of like an engineering degree in a way, and doing like calculus level courses in physics and stuff like that. Like if I can go from that to that, that was like that really propelled me to I could do anything at that point. Like I went in the Marine Corps. I went into college. The first after I got my remediation done, I did I got my X-ray technology degree because I needed to work. I needed to make money, so I got that degree. Took some X-rays for about 5 years, and that was like my exposure to college. That was it. 2 years done, or three because of remediation. But after that, working and stuff like that, I decided to go do oil and gas. And then after that, I decided I need to get back into college so that I can get a bachelor's degree, so that I actually have some paperweight when it comes to applying for jobs. And that's how I ended up in geology in Las Vegas. That was University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and they got some really awesome geology out there. Of course, everyone knows about Vegas and what else they have out there, but they had really good professors. And if you ever drive around it and you're not looking at the lights, you'll notice that there's tons of geological structures out there that can be identified. And I've even mapped an area that became a gold mine um, in Eureka, right outside Eureka, Nevada. So I mapped it, and then as I was mapping it, they had been staking claims on it while I was doing my geologic map on that. So being in the Marine Corps with the mapping skills and like terrain features and stuff like that was super helpful. Like I was a walk in the park. When we got to the field, we did 2 weeks in the desert. I was like, okay, there's no problem. I'll just
Yeah.
sleep on the ground, get up, go do whatever. Uh, and sometimes it was a drink fest in between that. So
Nice.
it was fun. It was a good time. Great degree. But as you can see, I'm in tech now, and geology is not something I'm doing. So that industry is different and hard. And it's one of those things where uh, you try to use your degree, but at the end of the day, you're going to make 50 thou and you're going to work 12 hours a day just starting out. In
Hmm.
a 10 to 15-year career time
Jeez.
span, you might get lucky and get to 80 or 90, maybe, depending on who you end up with and whatever. Some of the higher levels, like if you got a master's degree and went on to get that and a PhD, you could get paid more. But again, the amount of effort and work to put in to get to that, I found out over time was not worth it.
So, like, I mean, it's pretty badass that you went from like not doing so well in math and like, yeah, dude, fuck math, and to
Yeah.
like going into knee deep in math. How like what was that experience for you, and like how did you kind of like settle down with it and eventually level up? in all those subjects.
Yeah, yeah. So all the other subjects weren't that hard for me at all. So that's got a little traction doing like music and stuff like that. Some it's elective classes you take here and there. I got some momentum with that. And I was in a class where in the very beginning it was like these are polynomials. This is basic algebra. Just like getting that back again. And once I got some momentum on that, I was good. And then I hit a wall where I had to take a summer math pre-calculus course. And when I took that course, it was an accelerated course because it was like, it's summertime course. So, and I had an instructor who was not good at all. Like this dude was yelling at people like, why don't you get it? That kind of stuff. And I
Yeah.
was just like, man, just because of this one guy, I'm gonna I'm gonna get through this course and I'm not gonna stop. I'm just gonna keep
Wow.
going. This guy is like it's like, when your haters hate on you, that gives you like fire. And that's what it did for me. Like and this was like back in like 2006 or 2005 or something like that. And that's when I was taking that course, and it was just that's what I needed. I needed some guy to tell everybody like, why don't you get it, and like, what's wrong with you, and like saying things to not just me but like to other students and stuff like this,
Yeah.
and like write a big math calculation on the wall, and then just walk out of the room, and like, what just happened? Like I got that's my project. That's what I have to do. So I
Yeah.
think like that is what pushed me to do better and more. And then like learning more about engineering and geology. I say engineering because I initially majored as a petroleum engineer, and then I decided, nah, I don't want to do that. I want to go into geology because it was more fun. It was like not so much pressure with got shareholders coming after you because you lost $30,000 today. So it's like I wanted something that was more fun than it was it like monetary at that point.
Cool. So how did you transition into, well, what was it about tech, and how did you make that shift?
So yeah, I leaving off from my geology degree, graduated UNLV, struggled to find work, and I just said I got to do this. I just got to go. I got to run with it. So I just literally drove out to Texas, Midland, Odessa is where I landed. Huge oil town. I knew a guy I worked with before that had worked in there, in oil and gas. So he said, "Yeah, just go apply at this company." So I did, and I was working with wireline, and we did hydraulic fracturing. It's like a hand in hand. Like you fracture the rock, and then the wireline unit will put basically electronic wire down the well. At the end of that wire is an explosive. So we're putting an explosive down the hole, down the well, and it goes, vertical and then horizontal into the toe. They call it the foot or the toe. And then it goes there and then it explodes. And then it sets a plug and then it backs up. And then we just do that about an iterative time, like 15, 16 times. And then, so then they would frack after we plugged it. So we plug it, they frack, then we do it again. They plug it, we frack, we do it again. So that's how that worked. And I saw a lot of engineering stuff in there. So that's what like I was like getting my feet wet with my geology degree to do engineering, but I saw some tech stuff too. And I was like, okay, I could keep working out here in the middle of nowhere. And I just, I didn't really see it going anywhere. So what I did is I signed up with Baker Hughes. They were hiring, and I got a sales job selling drill bits. So I was selling drill bits from rig to rig to rig to rig, and I saw more conversations with engineers and technology and data because we would take pictures of the drill bits, and they would like use data points to say, okay, this bit is a 5 or a 4 or a 3. They have diamonds on them and stuff like that. So these are pretty expensive things. Like one drill bit could cost you like $50,000. So it was like, okay, now I'm seeing things in the field that are really cool. They're not soul geology related, but I want to learn more. Um, so we decided. I got married throughout that whole point. I got married, and we decided to go back to North Carolina, and that my transition from Texas to North Carolina was like where I went from oil and gas in slash sales engineering into other sales of engineering in construction industry. So I transitioned from oil and gas to construction industry. And in the construction industry, there was even more data that I was available to use during my work. I was using Power BI and stuff like that, a ton of Excel sheets, which I used before, but not to this intensity and not in like an actual workplace. just on school projects and stuff like that. So now I was like my income was dependent on how good I was at Excel and putting a bid together and talking to homeowners and builders and stuff like that. We were selling construction materials, so it was like insulation, spray foam, stuff like that. So that's where I kind of like saw the value in working in tech and data and stuff like that. And that's when I just like fully went, okay, I'm going to keep doing this job, this sales job, but I'm going to study tech on my own, and I'm going to get out of sales because sales wasn't really my forte. I mean, I did well in it, but it wasn't like that's not what I wanted to do. I said I can get into tech. And North Carolina is not really oil and gas industry area, so I could get into tech. They have tons of tech jobs here, and I could
Yeah.
also like make a really good income for myself, and it's doable without having a CS degree, which I had a bachelor's degree in geology. So I mean, that was somehow, but completely unrelated. I mean, really, if you think about it. I mean, I say like
Yeah.
I'm sure on applications I fill out, do you have a related degree? Sure, yeah, it's a bachelor's
Yeah.
degree, it's related.
Yeah.
It's a piece of paper, but when it's when behind the scenes, the only related information there would be like maybe doing reports or mathematical calculations that you're doing between computer science and geology. That's the only real relationship. But anyway, so I started for 8 months. I studied, and I say 8 months because it took me 8 months to get VA funding to get into a boot camp that they would pay for. This was before vet tech. This was before like my GI Bill was already washed out. I had no other resources. I had to figure out like how could I get the VA to help me out and just get some training. I didn't want another degree. I didn't want a PhD. I just wanted some actual training to do that. So I have hearing disability. The 10%, and most infantry guys get this. They get 10% because here's a washed out with spinal. So I was able to use that to my benefit to help them pay for vocational training. And that's how I got sort of the back loops through the VA system. But it wasn't like a program. It was something I had to work on for 8 months and work with the counselor. And we finally got the funding. And she's like, okay, you're approved for this boot camp for $10,000. So they just threw 10 down, and then I just did the boot camp. So after 8 months of studying HTML and CSS, I was pretty much ready to go. All I needed to do was learn JavaScript and all the other frameworks and stuff like that. So I I start the boot camp, do well the first 3 weeks, fall flat on my face after that because it's all JavaScript and like SQL, and I'm just like, I don't know what any of this is. But I worked full time, had a baby, had been married, is still married, and then had that course every day and weekend. So I was
Yeah.
fully on. I was waking up at 4 a.m. Not like I was waking up at 4 a.m. the first 8 months. And I just said, this is it. This is my routine. This is it. What
Damn,
does it
man.
cost for me to be successful? What does it cost? Does it cost time? Does it cost effort? Does it cost energy? I can do all that. I will do all that. So I said 4 a.m. every day, 4 to 8, go to work from 8 to 6, come home, do family stuff, get rest, get up at 4 a.m. again, go work out, whatever. So it's just every day, just that discipline, 4 a.m., 4 a.m., 4 a.m. So when I went to boot camp, 4 a.m., 4 a.m., I was getting through projects that people were barely understanding what was going on. I'm not saying I wasn't better than them. I was just putting in more effort and more discipline and more time. And over that period of time, I actually never stopped. I got out of that little 6 month. Yeah, it's a 6 month boot camp for part time. Yeah, that took me 6 months to do, and then had great instructors, great group of kids were there, um, non traditional workers, stuff like that. And then after that, I just said, I'm not gonna stop. I'm not gonna stop. 4 a.m. Gonna keep going until I get a tech job. So I did that. I worked my sales job, and then I woke up at 4 a.m. Now with more skills, better skills, start building more projects, building a portfolio, reading as much as I could. I'd be on a job and there was downtime. I got Brad Traversy on my phone, YouTube video. I don't even have a computer. I'm not even like I'm just listening to him while I'm at a job and we're having downtime. Just because I need to absorb and feel all that there is to feel, so that when people talk to me about tech, I know what I'm talking about. I know what they're saying, stuff like that. So
It's some motivating trash right there. That's awesome. And so you have done a successful transition into tech, and so how did you get a whiff of like hackathons, and what was your first hackathon? Like what got you, how did you gravitate towards hackathons?
Yeah, so I knew that people talked about like, yeah, you should do a hackathon. That's a thing that people do, and I was kind of scared at first. I had signed up with uh, there's a data science like hackathon that happens every year, and I always get their emails, and I was always kind of timid. I was like, that's not really my thing, and I was interested, but I just didn't know how to do or what to do about it. So I disregarded it. And then as I grew in tech, I started to realize like hackathons are good. People are doing them. They're helpful. You can learn a lot. Like this is a good thing. I need to do this. So my first attempt was to join Marine Coders, which is where you found me. And they had already done their hackathon, but I was working on their projects that were sort of MVPs. I started improving them as much as I could. Um, Forms and stuff, just like building them and trying to bring it off of a really messy JavaScript MVP that was set up on a hackathon. I would just build that into React and make a front end, and then we will work on it a little bit here and there. And it has been pushed to production, yeah. But I mean, it's sort of like a side project right now. So like that's what I started to like get into. You contacted me, and I was like, this is it. I mean, let's do this. I haven't done a hackathon. I'm ready to do it. I feel like confident in my skills. I could join a team. I didn't want to join a team and be in a hackathon where I was just lost because of the boot camp experience, the coding boot camp, the coding boot camp experience. I was so lost there after the first 3 weeks. I was like, I don't really like that feeling. I'm willing to, yeah, I'm willing to be in it again, but at least have some conceptual foundations. So I thought at this point, I actually could have done it earlier, but at this point, I was like, well, I got some good foundations. I know kind of what's going on. I've built a lot of projects. You know, I'll do this, and I'll help people along the way too, because now I can pull people that maybe they didn't go to boot camp or they're thinking about it or whatever. I can pull them up and say, hey, look, like this is try this, do this, or what, do you have any questions or whatever? So like, I felt better as a teacher. Um, and being a student's okay and fine and all that, but I just feel like I had more to offer as a person that could explain it and teach it a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you've done a couple hackathons, and tying him back to the Marine Corps, what would you say, like the Marine Corps experience, like how that shaped in leading and participating in hackathons? Is there any overlap between the two?
Definitely is. I think the way the Marine Corps, we're a brotherhood. We look out for each other. So that's one of the biggest things I think veterans have to learn how to deal with, or Marines that get out have to learn. Now you're a veteran. It's different out here. Not everyone's going to get your back, right? Not everyone's looking to your left and right like it was. You might be fooled by that where you go. So I think understanding that I was in a group of people that kind of know about that culture made it easier. Like I was like, okay, cool. So these people, they're here to help. Like we're all looking out for each other. It's not like a workplace where just everyone's out to get their own promotion. So I was like, that was helpful to have that culture. But then the other part for just bringing Marine Corps skills was all the intangible ones. You know, being having initiative, having discipline, getting up in the morning when you don't want to get up, doing it. Whether it's working out or doing coding or whatever, like just that all those things that you learn in the Marine Corps, all those disciplinary things that you learn were so helpful in just maintaining, like even in the code, like even doing the actual code, like, okay, so this is not congruent, like this needs to be fixed, and I'm going to fix it right here on the spot. And knowing what order to put like the importance, like, okay, so this needs to be fixed, but that can be done 2 weeks from now. I'm not worried about it. So I need to look at this thing over here that's really important, and this is going to make the project break if we don't fix that right away, or at least put more effort onto that side. So kind of the leadership in the Marine Corps, where you learn how to delegate and you learn how to assess the situation quickly, and like those skills came into play.
Awesome. And so for this previous hackathon, what sparked the idea for the equine therapy app?
So we spoke with the group. I had a really great team. Everybody was very collaborative. I give props to all of them. They all did really good. But we were coming up with ideas. Some ideas had already been done, like a pill counter, like a scheduler for like pills and stuff like that. And there was a couple ideas thrown around. And I came up with this idea because I was looking around the VA and I was like, what are people not getting? What are vets not getting access to? Like what are some things they could use like that could help them? So I started looking at therapies, and then I realized, like, okay, so there's all kinds of these acupuncture and stuff like this. But I'm saying horse therapy sounds really cool. I'm like, I never done it before. I heard of people with PTSD having that, not just in the military, but even like first responders and stuff like that. So I was like, this would be a cool thing. Like, there should be access, in my opinion, to horse therapy for anyone in the VA that wants to get that help. Should be able to get that help or get that therapy or try it out, test it out. So what I noticed was there was only a couple of VAs that had it just by doing a Google search. So I was like, okay, so only a couple of them have it. Let's find out who all has it, and if we can connect that into like an app where people could look up, veterans could look up where, in respect to their location, is there a location that has it, and what's the contact information? What do you do? How do you do it? Like, what's it about? So that was like the the meat and potatoes of the app was like, let's show people where they can get this kind of help, because you can Google search it and you can spend all day on Google, and it's like, well, why isn't there a way to fluidly get to that information and have more than just a Google search, like have other information about what it, who wants to Google all day? I don't. I want my information right away, quickly. So I thought that this app would be really cool, and to also connect. The added feature was to connect the third party horse therapy providers to the VA so they could get funding, because there is providers that aren't getting funding, and they could use that funding, and that will connect more veterans with more horse therapy locations.
So, could you walk us through like what the user experience looks like from using it?
Yeah. So just like verbally.
Yeah, just at a high level, like what is what
Yeah.
does it look like from the veteran's perspective?
So the veteran, so the veteran goes to the website. Then what they'll see is like a header hero image, just to kind of be light on the eyes a little bit. There's navigation at the top, so you could go from each link you want to, more information about what horse therapy actually is, stuff like that. And then as you scroll down, there's going to be a drop down box, and it's going to drop down all the states that actually have VA facilities that have that kind of service, that therapy. And then you will click the state you want to pick to look up to find out if they have it. And then you will click submit, and then that will provide you a link of for that state, all the horse therapy providers available in that state to you. So
Cool.
basically, pick your state, submit it, and it'll tell you where and what to do.
And then what's that experience for the third party providers that connects to the VA for grants? What does that
Yeah.
look like?
Yeah. So that was something that kind of evolved from the app. We are like, well, we're connecting veterans. Let's connect, the other people too. Let's get them. Let's be the middleman of this whole thing. So we decided to have the ability for, if you were a third party provider, that you could go onto our website and look up, like, get the funding started at least. So giving them the proper information. We gave them some pitfalls, what to look out for, and then at the future goal would be to be more intense on that. That was kind of our icebox goal, was to like make it as seamless as possible, where they could just like fill out a form from us, we send it to the VA, it's done. Right. That was what our goal was. But what we ended up doing, because hackathon, you can only do so much, it was just having the form downloadable so they could fill out, and then they would have to send it to the VA. So the concept was there, but it needed more work and intensity. But our primary focus was going to be, let's make sure the veterans are taken care of, and then we'll start helping the external factors.
Cool. So diving into the tech side of things, what made you move forward with like an MVC model view controller versus like monolithic type architecture?
Architectural decision was we wanted to have full control and something we were familiar with. So we were all familiar with MVC. We could have used monolithic. I just don't know that much about that kind of architecture. So I didn't want to push that on because if I couldn't lead it, how could I teach something I barely even know, right? So I knew MVC pretty well. It's pretty commonly used, and everybody was very comfortable with that setup of architecture. So that made sense. And then the next decision made was, should we use JavaScript throughout? And the answer was yeah, because we all could read and understand JavaScript. So we were going to use it on the front end and back end. So then that pretty much narrowed it down to we'll use React on the front end. That'll be our view. And then our models will be the schema for Mongoose and MongoDB. And then our Node and Express would be our backend using JavaScript. So then we had like a nice flat field where everybody could speak and teach and learn from JavaScript rather than like, you know, C# on the back end and JavaScript on the front end, and everyone's learning JavaScript. So it's like that it makes, we wanted to keep it level.
Just so you guys chose MongoDB with Mongoose over like a traditional SQL because you wanted to keep everything uniform and sounded like it was a good learning experience for the teammates that were in the project.
Yeah. So we decided that the kind of we were just using JSON data. That's what we were either sending JSON data or getting it, and it was just like, well, we're not really like doing expensive calculations. We're not. There's no relation database that work that we need to do like that. It wasn't like heavy lifting wasn't necessary. So we decided first we were kind of discussed, but we're going to maybe use Airtable because it would be easy to use. Or API is easy, just as basically an Excel sheet. That's an API. So like, well, that might be something we could use. But then MongoDB, it goes pretty seamless, and the schema goes pretty seamless together with Mongoose. That we were just like, okay, let's just move to Mongoose and MongoDB, Mongoose being like the schema validator, and then like MongoDB could just hold it, hold our collection of all the JSON objects that we're going to need, and retrieving it with Node and Express just goes together. So it was pretty easy to do. So yeah, we could have used other technologies, but I think since I was leading this project, I felt the most comfortable with that, and no one objected to, hey, I even put it out there. I said, if anybody else wants to work on the back end and they have good experience, take it. Like you have it, it's yours. So I did. So we did. There was no like you do this and that's all you do. It was everyone shared responsibilities, very open discussion. If you had expertise in one technology or another, and you feel like you could run with it, then you would do that. It was offered to everybody to do that. But everybody just, everyone was comfortable with what was going on. And I suggested, let's just use MongoDB and Express, Mongoose for the schema, and we'll roll with that.
So how did you approach testing? I noticed you guys use Cypress for end to end. Yeah. What made you guys? How did you guys approach it?
So testing was something I brought into play with everybody. I had just learned about Cypress, and I played with it at work a little bit. So I was like, wow, Cypress really does take a lot of that like mental gymnastics out of the way. So this would be a perfect opportunity to try to use it for end-to-end testing because I mean their documentation is great, their demos are great, they're easy to use. It has a really good DX design developer experience. So that was like my first reason why I reached for Cypress. And then for our end-to-end testing, what I thought would be the most important unit testing would be to unit test every single navigational link. Right? I mean, you could test everything you want, right? But there's a little bit of cost to that. You want to spend too much time testing every little thing. Some things just need to work because we all know that this button's going to work a certain way, right? Like no reason to overkill and test that little tiny icon or whatever. Like that's going to work. But when it comes to navigational links or something like that with higher importance, that's when. So I tested every single one of the navigational links as the first layer, and then the second layer was the end to end. Could I run a user all the way through it and back out, and would it work? and it did.
Smart.
It did pretty easy.
Nice. And so for plugging into the VA API, how was that experience like? And have you done that before?
Never done them before. We got some sandbox keys. Is how we started. We just went to the API and got the sandbox keys, and we started. I just started playing with it. I started like pushing on it and pulling on it, see what would happen, and what API gives me what JSON body back. Like, what am I getting out of this? What is any of this information useful? Is any of it clean? Is any of it duplicative? Is any of it like sort of mystical? Like you're like, why is this here and it's not over there? Not congruent. So I just hammered on it a little bit, and I decided like this is a good API. We should use this. I don't know any other way we could get VA API, any VA information besides scraping every single website. So I was like, this API is pretty good. Let's try to use this. And that's how our scraper sort of evolved. We were getting good information from the VA and we used the API, but it wasn't giving us that granular information that we really needed for the unique therapies that only a few VA locations have. That's why how we pulled in the scraper from Playwright into that. So they
Cool.
changed their API, I think a couple weeks ago.
Hmm.
I needed to look at that, but yeah, they made some improvements to it, and I've actually submitted a bug report on their UI for you. If they had GitHub, I would just make a PR.
Yeah.
They don't have that because it's government. So basically, just send them the little dialogue box and say, hey, this, I don't remember what it was. It was a while back, but like, hey,
No
this
kidding.
is not like working correctly. So, or this is a duplicate or whatever it was. I don't remember at the time, but I did submit it. So,
Hopefully they take a look and you fix it. Could you talk to me about some of the advantages Node of like using Node and Express for the backend servers?
yeah. So everyone knows Node has tons of documentation. It's pretty easy to use in your terminal. You spin up a server. It's not too difficult to spin up a very super basic server on the back end. So that was why we use that, and all our dependencies were lined right up with it. So then we added our Express, and that just adds that middleware, helps us with middleware. It just makes that extra layer of finesse on top of Node, so it doesn't have to be so rocky. So like for our routes, like yeah, the Node server is saying go to this route, but then the Express middleware is taking that route and giving you that granularity of, okay, I want to get for example, I'll just make up an example, like the user's login information. So with Express, I'm able to look at the params that are sent in from or the request body that's sent through. Then we can say, okay, well, if this is in the database, then don't let them log in. If it's not in the database, send them to the register page, something like that. So like that middleware was really helpful with Node in connecting the front end and stopping anything that would come through that we didn't want. So if you had errors or something like that, we'd add more middleware to that. So yeah, we mostly used Express in the controllers. The MVC architecture was just heavy on the controllers, and that's where it's at. So yeah.
Sweet. You being in tech now for the past, few years, who would you say some of your who do you say you would look up to?
Um, I wish there was military people that I liked that were in tech,
Yeah.
especially if there was like Marines that were like awesome coders. That would be so cool. To follow 'em. They're hard to
Yeah.
find, and they probably don't want to be seen if they are good because they just want to keep to themselves. I would imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, who I follow in tech is like I find them on Twitter. I'll find them on PRs that I'll be looking at or looking through libraries and seeing their name quite a bit. You'll see there's so like Wes Boss. He's one of the guys. You'll see these guys at like the conferences too as well. So any speaker at a React conference is a good one to follow. Anyone who's putting out Udemy courses that are really good, Stephen Grider, he's one of the really good data structures and algorithms guys with JavaScript. So he's sort of like a backbone that I use just to sit on. There's no front end stuff on it. It was just data structures and algorithms. Um, and then Brad Traversy is the one I used a lot of for like figuring out how to connect every the pieces together. If you spin up a create React app, how do we get all these things to work together and flow from front to back? So he has a couple courses that are React front to back. I would highly recommend doing those. I've done them. I put PRs on his GitHub for some of his projects for little things here and there that I found or wanted to improve. But yeah, other ones are George Moeller. He's like a huge React um, guy on Twitter. So he'll always post like cool demos of like what he's found out in React that really helps improve your component composition or something like that. So like it's pretty cool to see someone like showing you, not just talking about it like, hey, read the docs, whatever. Yeah, that's cool. But he's actually has like a really cool UI of like, okay, take your component and do this and make a children here, and then you can insert there and won't do double re-renders or whatever. So it's like it's pretty cool to see that kind of stuff. So I keep eye on Twitter as well. I'm not
Nice.
heavily into Twitter. Like I'm not like a huge influencer or whatever. But I like to sit on there and just kind of scroll through, dead scroll, and look at what's going on in tech and new technologies and TypeScript drama.
Yeah. Who are who are some folks that you're following for TypeScript?
The Prime Agent, he's one of the guys that does a front end master's course. If you ever
Yeah.
get to take a front end master's course, those are pretty intense, and I heard pretty good. I haven't done one yet. I really want to do one. But he's one of the main instructors on there, and he jokes around a lot too. But some of the stuff he mentions or talks about is pretty good. The React query, I forget his name. Uh, what's his name? The guy who made up React query, I forget his name. He's on my feed too, and he has like this guy comes. He's a genius. He comes up with these like wild questions I've never even heard of. And Kyle Simpson, he's the other one who's like a JavaScript master. And there's a couple Namaste JavaScript. He's a good one too to watch out for. Um, he's the one I learned a lot about the event loop about. The way he explained it was just like right on. I was like, dude, you could look up Namaste JavaScript Namaste, and he fine grain walks through every step of promises and all kinds of stuff like that.
Awesome. Bringing it back to the hackathon, could you talk about some of the highs and lows through the 3-day event?
Yeah, so highs and lows. Some of the highs were everyone was excited. We all started off on the right foot. We were putting in the work. Um, we were looking at the designs and setting up our stuff was coming out. It's looking good, like every step of the way. One of the things I put into play was a very strict Git flow. I wanted to make sure that everyone just wasn't pushing to the main. That would be bad. So I make sure everyone understood what we want to do is push to production or to development, and then we'll merge to production later. So by doing that, it kind of forced people to like write a real PR and like there's recommendations on how to do it on our README and stuff like that. I'm like, you know, tell us what problem you're trying to solve, stuff like that. But I will say one of the low points was during the hackathon when things were going full speed, we had to kind of push that off. In the beginning, it worked really well, but during the middle of the hackathon, we had to like say, okay, we just don't have time to like wait for someone to approve a PR because we're gonna have merge conflicts. We're gonna have more trouble than ever. So we just anytime needed to push to main, say, hey, I'm pushing to main. Anyone want to look at this? Okay, I'm not. Okay, good, go for it. So that was sort of I guess I could say that was a low point, but it was something that was necessary to do.
So you talked about collaboration or potential collaborations with nonprofits like Healing Heroes through horses. So how would those collaborations? How would that work?
Like we're collaborating with him.
Yeah, because I
Uh,
think you talked about that in your project description. from what
Yeah.
I
So
yeah.
Gladys was she was new to tech, and she was very articulate with her readmes and stuff like that, and she was on it. And I think she was the one that reached out to the Heroes one, and just to find out some information about how they work, what they do, can they, would they want funding and stuff like that. So that was sort of like our like feel for the market. Like, is this something that they might want to do? So she could answer that better, but I think that getting, because we found out also, so on top of that, so we found out also that there was nonprofits who were taking horses that were going to be slaughtered, and they were taking them and making them into horse therapy horses. So like the horse was going through its own PTSD, its own like traumatic anxiety or whatever it was. They broke their leg or whatever, right? They're going to go to the glue factory. So by that horse getting its recovery, it actually recovered with the veteran that they were trying to. So they were saving two people, but that's what they were saying. They're saying we could save two lives by doing this. So that was a
Yeah.
really cool thing. It was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So these nonprofits aren't just like what you think of, like they just want money or they just want to, that kind of thing. These nonprofits are very authentic. They're good people. They're trying to, help veterans at the same time, help, horses or whatever, or, rehabilitate them and stuff like that. So they don't all do that, but some of them were doing that. So we found that was pretty cool. So we could collaborate with those guys. Can we reach out to them and get their information about let us, what we wanted to do is have a pathway to send veterans to them outside the VA, because we knew the VA couldn't do it all, and they probably don't have visibility on this. They barely do. That's why there's only like eight VA locations that actually do this, or something like that. So like our to answer your question, can we set up a pathway to the third party going around the VA and getting veterans the services they need, regardless if the VA is going to be acting on it or not? That was sort of like our approach to that.
Cool. Wrapping things up here, what would you tell an active duty infantry marine considering coding?
I would say you can do it. You definitely can do it. You have the skills necessary. You have everything you need. All you got to do is just go do it. That's all you got to do. You could probably. I probably want to spend too much time reading books because they get outdated. So what you need to do is keep up with tech, free code camp, learn some basics. Some of the free, there's so many free resources. Maybe pick up a Udemy course, follow along. You just let them tell you what to write, and you start writing it, and eventually you'll be writing it on your own without even listening to anybody. So I'd say like that muscle memory would help. I'd say you're going to go into a great field. You're going to go into an industry where you're going to get paid good, and amongst your peers, you're going to be someone that's got the fortitude to move forward with projects, or say, hey, we just can't do that, or hey, I can do that. I can do that tomorrow morning. I can get that done, and move the flag forward as much as you can. Because there is times when you need to learn to say, hey, that's not a requirement, or that's not part of the scope that has been illustrated to us. So we can't do that until that's been added in. So yeah, I would say if you're an infantry marine and you're looking to get into coding, you're going to make good money. You're going to put in some work. It's certainly possible. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to have to study a lot, and you're going to have to give up some time. And you're going to be on your way to, within a short amount of time, less than a 4-year degree, you're going to be on your way to making some really good money and having an improved lifestyle.
Awesome. So throughout, this process of the hackathon, what's been the most surprising thing you've learned either about tech or yourself, the veteran community, if you had to put a finger on it?
What I've learned is that I I I try. So, like, what I've learned is there's going to be a lot of noise. And in order to punch through that noise, you're going to have to be pretty vigilant about who you're listening to and why and what. For me, I was able to like filter out some of the noise and just say, let me just do free code camp. Let me just do HTML and CSS. Now, I never thought I would be doing HTML and CSS for 8 months, or I didn't know if this was useful or not, but it was very useful. It helped me in a lot of debugging. But what I learned is just having that grit, having the grit and punching through. And there's going to be a lot of noise, and there's going to be a lot of little bubbles. Like on Twitter, there is places on Twitter where people will be mad because you use JavaScript on the front end and back end, right? And it's just like, you can't listen to all that. You just got to do day by day, one foot in front of the other. Just like when you go on a 20-mile hump, you're not thinking about mile 20. You're thinking about, I need a smoke break. Let me get these feet in front of me first. You know what I mean? So, yeah, one foot in front of another. And I just learned more about how much grit I have, just punching through it even more.
Awesome. Yeah, as we wrap up with our last question here, what message or call to action would you like to leave with the audience today?
I would say if you are interested in coding, I would first do some coding to see if you even like it. If you do like it, start doing more research. I wouldn't go full bore like I'm just going to be a programmer right now and just go get a CS degree. Like, don't do that. Just research it, learn more about it, ask more questions, go to some meetups, talk to people in the industry, uh, get involved in a hackathon. That's going to help you out a lot. Um, and just be true to yourself. And it's not just about the actual coding. It's not just like putting together an object and making it a loop through it, right? There's going to be times you're going to have to use soft skills. You're going to have to be able to talk to people. Your biggest challenge won't be the coding, it will be getting the job. That's going to be your biggest challenge. These hackathons, these open source projects, these contributions you're making, these projects you're working on, your side projects, keep them going, because those are going to give you the skills and exposure you're going to need when you go on an interview and they ask you about a data structure and they say, can you put a stack and queue together? And you can say, yeah, I can do that. And then they test your soft skills. So I would say, get your hard skills, tech skills down, and get your soft skills prepared to be able to have a casual conversation, because that's what a real good interview is going to be, super casual. If it's not like that, then you're probably not in a good interview. But get the dev job, because that's going to be the hardest challenge you'll have through everything.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for that. And I appreciate you coming on, Greg. I really do, man. Thanks for coming on.
Glad to be on here. Glad to have it. Thanks for
Bruh.
having me.